Hey guys, I'm Richard Dunnagan. This video is about practical prepping. While any preparations are practical, today I want to address an area that I don't hear much about, at least not in the way I plan to present it. If you hang with me and you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. I cover lots of different topics, from estate planning to beekeeping. So let's get started. There are a lot of people who are concerned that our present standard of living is unsustainable. Many of you are working hard towards self-sufficiency or preparing to live off the grid. Whatever level of concern you have about the future, given the strong possibility that there will be some kind of major disruption to our social norms, the idea that we develop survival skills and have preparations in place is prudent. The most challenging aspect of preparing for any uncertainty is how to cover all the possible scenarios. Even harder is how to prepare for a calamity and still be prepared if nothing major changes. How can you make sure your efforts for impending doom will still be worthwhile if nothing happens? In this series, I want to focus on just one aspect of this idea and talk specifically about being prepared if the financial system we have come to rely upon were to change. As an estate planning consultant for over 2 decades, my focus has long been on helping people prepare financially for the future they hope to have. For anyone wanting to be prepared for anything, it's important to include financial plans that will cover a wide range of changes in our financial structure, including if nothing major were to happen. The backbone of our economy and the worldwide standard of currency is the American dollar. This simple piece of paper carries with it a powerful stigma. People struggle their entire lives to accumulate more. Some do unscrupulous things to acquire them. Family members fight with each other over who gets the dollars left behind by mom and dad. Countless crimes are committed against innocent strangers because of someone's desire to gain control over more dollars. Everything we consider of value uses the dollar as a reference for quantifying that worth. We measure the significance of our labor in dollars per hour. Investment and savings accounts are stated in a dollar amount. Our social status is based on the number of dollars we control and the dollar value of our tangible assets. There's basically nothing that can't be represented in terms of a financial figure. We can even place an economic value on our lives and insure them for some dollar amount when we die. Ironically, the dollar bills we trade for things have no actual worth, only an intrinsic value that we willingly bestow upon them. In a growing digital economy, you don't even need to paper in hand to trade and spend dollars. With direct deposit of paychecks, few people ever touch a significant amount of hard currency anymore and rely upon their credit and debit cards to move numbers from their asset column to that of someone else. Even so, it is the concept of the dollar as legal tender which provides a value we can't afford to live without, at least under our present system. The arrival of various cryptocurrencies as an alternative to the dollar is tickling the fancy of people who want to be more secretive about their holdings. Talk of the government actually entering that realm through the Fed would do the exact opposite. It would not only create a permanent record of every monetary transaction, it would allow the government to control your access to financial activities in whatever manner they wanted. Our reliance on the dollar as the backbone of all things financial requires that we consider the wide extremes of circumstances which could impact the value of the dollar. To simplify our discussion, we'll talk about how to prepare for the best and the worst case scenarios. If you're ready for either of those with some adaptation, you should be able to handle anything that falls in between. If nothing major were to change in our financial system, you need to prepare for retirement the same way you are doing right now. Make sure you're saving money for retirement income in different kinds of liquid investments that will grow in value. You have to plan on paying taxes on both your income and your property. While there might be an extreme future where the entities that collect tax were to fall, everything in between will still require you to stay current on tax payments or suffer all the consequences you would currently face, or worse. If you still want a retirement plan which includes world travel, daily golf, or beach house, if those things are important to you and you have the resources to prepare for them, go ahead. We may never experience anything that would prevent you from enjoying that kind of retirement. It would still be good to consider modifications we will cover here to preserve your best case but remain prepared for the worst. As we look for the first signs of some kind of financial change, they're already here. We're experiencing record high inflation, and our country is approaching a level of national debt which will be impossible to support. How those things will impact our future is uncertain, but these changes are the ones we're most likely to see in the near future, no matter what lies beyond. Much of the timing and severity of that future lies in the hands of our political system. But without a major change in direction, our economy is facing a major correction. For a country that has suffered a major depression and multiple recessions, these financial shifts are often minimized as a routine part of our economy with no long-term cause for concern. Individually, we each feel these swings differently. The more your life and assets are tied to the current financial system, the more any changes in it will impact you. During the Great Depression, the vast majority of average citizens were made destitute. Even some people who had wealth in stocks were essentially wiped out. Because of the large number of people involved, the government stepped in to help, but those efforts merely prevented people from dying of starvation. People who had wealth and assets not affected by the decline in stock values made a fortune buying up property at depressed values. I am in no way suggesting you attempt to second guess what the future holds so you can take advantage of depressed prices like some people do during a depression or recession. Just put your plan in place that works for you in any scenario, and most likely it will put you in a favorable position to take advantage of opportunities that arise. Our world is so interconnected that our national economies are impacted by the economics in other major countries. If our economy was to suffer a major decline, we'd send that impact offshore, and as the other countries felt our pain, their resulting declines would ripple back to us. Wars and conflicts will always have an economic impact on the countries involved, as well as all those closely connected to them. Even non-threatening tensions between nations has the ability to negatively impact economics. As you keep your eye on global events, keep in mind that the greater dependence you have on our current economic system, the more you will be affected by any changes that occur, domestically or internationally. There's still one huge possibility that we need to address, which could be triggered by any of the previously mentioned concerns. What would happen if the dollar itself were to suddenly become worthless? We've seen instances in other countries, Germany after World War II and Venezuela more recently, where political turmoil caused the value of their currency to nosedive, creating hyperinflation and sending the population into immediate poverty. Since our dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the government, if something significant happened to affect people's faith in the government, the dollar could quickly lose some, if not all, of its value. Part of our high standard of living is by virtue of the dollar serving as the benchmark for all world currency. What if the American dollar was removed from that position? How would that impact our economy? And what would take its place? What if the entire world economic interconnection that exists today were to suddenly unravel? To adequately prepare for the absolute worst financial future, you need to continue using the current system, but with more intention and efficiency. You can't focus all your plans on a dismal future or you could end up creating one for yourself in the event no significant financial changes were to occur during your lifetime. Conversely, if you focus entirely on a traditional retirement, and we did have a major financial adjustment, you could be wiped out. The ideal preparation requires that you develop a dual plan with as much overlap as possible. Having cash will always be important, right up to the point that you don't need it or can't use it. By continuing to use the existing economic system to your benefit for as long as possible, whatever you don't need or can't use, you can give to the next generation for a tremendous boost in their preparations. While we have no idea what the future holds, most preppers believe major change is inevitable. But the longer we can kick that can down the road, the better for all of us. Traditionally, we're taught to save as much money as possible for retirement. We need cash to create income to support the lifestyle we want once we stop working. The size of the nest egg necessary to produce that income is dependent upon the expenses we expect to have, based on the number of years we think that need will last. During your working years, if you put all your retirement savings effort into building up cash and investments, you could have a very comfortable retirement. Unfortunately, you will have no fallback position for the possibility of cash or currency becoming irrelevant. In the worst case scenario, if cash becomes worthless, you could be left broke. Here is where our financial preparations need to divert from those of the typical retirement. As we move through this very important segment, I will be offering 6 hybrid retirement tips. At the end of this video, I'll review each of them once again. Hybrid retirement tip number 1. Reduce the amount of cash needed for retirement by entering it debt-free. Because you want to be prepared for all possible futures, you still need to save for retirement, just not as much in the form of cash. To be prepared for the best case scenario and still be prepared for the worst, if you strategically reduce the amount of cash you need, you can divert the rest of your retirement savings effort into buying hard usable assets. How you acquire those assets is critically important. The traditional approach encourages people to finance major purchases to the limit. When you use leverage, you not only increase the total cost for those items, you obligate a significant amount of your future income that could otherwise be used to fulfill this plan. The earlier you can start your debt-free life, the more of your income can be used in creating equity, which is a benefit in any financial future. At the very least, by eliminating the exorbitant costs to service debt and mortgage payments, by the time you reach retirement, you can greatly reduce the amount of income you'll need. Another negative aspect of debt is that as long as you owe someone money for any reason, they have a level of control over you and your property. If any semblance of an institution or individual to whom you owe a debt remains after a collapse, with currency worthless, they'll be even more motivated to take your property as payment. In a complete breakdown of our modern financial system, there will be unscrupulous people who will attempt to step into the role of banks and government entities and try to gain control over useful assets using any means necessary. You can minimize their efforts to come after your property if you have no loopholes they can use to claim ownership. Hybrid retirement tip number 2. Invest in a homestead farm property where you can live for years leading up to retirement, developing the skills and acquiring the equipment needed for future self-sufficiency. Another major expense to cover in retirement is food cost. If you continue to shop at the grocery store, you'll need the same amount of money for groceries then as you use now, adjusted for inflation. You can reduce that food expense by growing your own in full or at least in part. The preparation for becoming self-sufficient for your nutritional needs requires an investment of both time and money in the years leading up to your target date for independence. If you want to grow food and raise animals, you first need a suitable tract of land. In addition to this investment, you'll need to acquire skills in the techniques of farming, butchering, canning, and freezing. Part of this plan should involve acquiring this land as early as possible and beginning your education as a farmer when there's no pressure to succeed. If you were to suddenly need to grow your own food at some point, you don't want that to be your first year of attempting to do so. It will take years of practice to learn what works best, but those skills one day could save your life and that of your family. Farms require a lot of labor, so part of the equipment you need will be tools that can help you manage the land and the animals. Depending upon how off the grid you want to be, gasoline and diesel fuels do not store well over time, so stockpiling reserves of petroleum for running farm tractors is not a sustainable approach in a dire situation. Giving yourself years to grow into your role as a farmer will also give you time to experiment with developing other methods of farming or for powering equipment, which does not require electrical power or combustion engines. It worked before, and it can work again. There will be ongoing expenses to running a farm, and there will be necessary supplies you cannot create on your own. So be prepared for there to be additional underlying costs to growing your own food. If money's not in play, then barter will likely become the method of trade with others who have what you need. Taking care of a garden or raising farm animals is hard work, and over the course of your retirement, you'll lose the physical ability to work on those endeavors, so you must account for that self-sufficiency to decrease with age. For much of human history, people lived in communal situations where generations of families and friends lived closely enough to join forces in support of the needs of their group. When it comes to food production, there is economy of scale, so having larger tracts managed by many capable hands would be more efficient than going it alone. Unless your food independence is already underway, should something occur suddenly, you'll want to have an interim supply of food while you're waiting for your garden to grow. Once you've produced a few crops, you can save enough seed from current years to further reduce your need for cash to buy food or food-producing supplies. Hybrid retirement tip number 3. Stockpile all the materials, equipment, and durable supplies you can for your homestead to have what you need on hand to be able to become self-sufficient by the time you plan to retire. As we already mentioned, the big reduction in retirement expense is to own your home without a mortgage, but you also want to have it as low maintenance as possible. If you are able to do repairs yourself, you can save considerably on labor, yet there could still be material costs. Like farming, eventually you won't be able or willing to do some of the necessary maintenance work, so you will need options for having that work done by others. Part of your accumulation of tools for your farm will be building tools needed for working on your home, fences, and structures. You can acquire ahead of time all the materials that might be needed for repairs, but having some basic items on hand for common maintenance is recommended. Consider the shelf life of anything you store and avoid stockpiling things that could go bad before being needed. Instead, invest in specialty tools and equipment where you can fabricate some of the items you might need. Another advantage of living in a small community is so the group could individually provide specialty skills without every family needing to be able to perform those tasks themselves. If you enter retirement with no debt and a home and land you can farm, you'll still need to buy basic supplies, pay for insurance, utilities, and materials needed to maintain your property and equipment. In a normal scenario, you'll continue to have access to places to buy these needed supplies, so you will need money to do so. In a worst-case scenario, you will find locating these supplies difficult, if at all. So stocking up on some essential replacement parts might make sense. If you have a home with land that you own outright, in the best-case scenario, you'll still have property taxes to pay. In any scenario short of a total collapse of government, that bill will continue to come due. Even if the local government fails, there is the possibility that some self-appointed keepers of the peace will attempt to step into that role and strong-arm property owners for some kind of payment. Hybrid retirement tip number 4. Develop a practical and reliable energy supply system for your homestead. Energy production is going to be a major component of learning to live off the grid. While it's possible to produce your own energy for basic needs, there will be a sizable upfront cost for this future ability to detach from the grid completely. Petroleum products will be less reliable, and refined fuels like gasoline and diesel are not a long-term option because of their limited shelf life. It will be easier to consider producing electrical energy with wind, solar, or hydro generation. It is possible you could build up a significant storage of LP in tanks that you can use to supplement generating electricity, heat, or other domestic and farm uses. Unfortunately, in the worst-case scenario, there will be no resupply. The good news is that propane will store for long periods of time, so you could benefit from tapping into that as a backup or supplement to other energy sources. Ironically, that means that as far as vehicles go, electric cars and trucks and propane farm equipment would be far more reliable for the long haul if you had enough electrical generating capability and sufficient LP stored. Once again, the communal approach would allow for the sharing of excess energy or use of related equipment. A number of residences using the most advantageous generating approach could create their own small electrical grid, which could be shared. Hybrid retirement tip number 5. Understand and plan for the possibility of an EMP attack and develop safeguards. Electric and electronic equipment will be vulnerable to an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse detonation. So part of your consideration should be learning how to harden the most essential parts of your electrical system to avoid losing it all just when you need it most. This is tricky, and consideration for necessity over convenience should be the basis for all your decisions. There will be no internet, GPS, or cell phones in the worst case scenario, although there could be some resumption of those things anywhere in between. Unless you plan to become an expert in how to prepare for this, you might want to enlist the help of someone who fully understands what it would take to provide you different levels of protection from this specific threat. One of the most destructive and disruptive events which could happen to destroy our modern way of life would be an EMP attack. Our years of fearing a nuclear bomb were focused on the total annihilation such a blast could have in a densely populated area. Still, the effects would be minimal compared to the detonation of one small nuclear device 200 miles over the center of the continent. There would be no death or destruction of people or property from a blast above the atmosphere, but every unprotected electronic device within sight of that point would be immediately fried. All this kind of attack would take is some rogue entity to launch a small nuclear missile from a vessel in the Gulf of Mexico, and our way of life as we know it would be over. If you think this is an exaggeration, read the series starting with the first book, 1 Second After, by William Fortune, where due to the elimination of everything electrical and electronic, all existing structures in society and governance are destroyed. Hybrid tip number 6. Provide for the smooth and safe passage of possession of your assets to heirs using the best means available at the time. In any scenario, you will want your hard work and planning to continue to benefit your family for many years. This requires that you take real measures to ensure that they will be able to inherit your assets, no matter what the circumstances. In the best case scenario, you need to have legal documents professionally written by an estate planning attorney to cost efficiently pass your assets to the people you choose to have them. Without legal documents, the landscape is quickly muddied and the rest of your plans could be derailed. If you save sufficiently for your retirement income and nothing happens in your lifetime, and by leaving that cash and your fully functional homestead to your heirs, you give them the opportunity to build upon what you've established by using the remainder of your retirement cash to restock, update, and improve the property. If there is no government structure to supervise the passage of your assets to the next generation, you'll need to make sure that your property is never left unprotected, as squatters and looters could come and steal you blind. If you live in a communal setting where there are other family members and friends to help control your estate before your heirs are able to, it will be easier to keep safe. In a lawless society, possession will be the entire law. Maintaining possession and control will be paramount at all times. As you can see, it's wise to remain connected to the current economic structure as long as that structure is in place. Your plan, as we described above, is intended to minimize the amount you rely upon that structure under any circumstance, but especially to minimize your loss in the event of a total collapse of that system. With that in mind, after you set aside money efficiently for cash flow needs, retire all debts and mortgages, stock up on supplies, equipment, and maintenance items, and begin to store anything that can shelve long term, the next thing to consider is a replacement for the dollar in a cashless society. Now, let's have an open and honest discussion about all the hype for gold. For thousands of years, gold has been the standard for wealth and power for individuals as well as monarchies and governments. With historical consistency, people have granted gold a uniquely high value based upon its characteristics as an element, rather than for its practical uses. What is it that makes gold so valuable? Other than its rarity, its beauty, and endurance, gold actually has few practical uses for the average person. In a normal economy that is experiencing swings between prosperity and recession, gold has the potential to maintain consistency more than many other types of investments. That's why it's been recommended frequently over the past few decades as a hedge against inflation. Companies have risen up in recent years to do nothing but sell gold to investors, while others are willing to pay cash to individuals for their small bits of old gold jewelry and coins. Governments have long held stockpiles of gold, and in the past, that stash is what gave currency actual value. While many countries still own large amounts of gold, their continuance to do so is largely symbolic, since most currencies are simple federal notes, like the US dollar. The human desire for gold has become so programmed that it's almost a natural instinct. There is a sound basis for personally owning gold, but most of the current hype to own gold as a safety net is seriously flawed. With stocks, shares in companies are sold on the open market, and the price of that stock fluctuates continually based upon supply and demand. Gold is also traded on an open market, so its value also swings widely, but usually in opposition to the financial markets. People move into gold when other investments are declining and get out of gold when markets are rising. Just like the stock market, the real value of gold is determined by the big players in the market who manage hedge funds for retirement portfolios. The buying and selling of gold by an individual doesn't even show up on the radar. It's important to understand that as an individual owning gold, your options for selling that gold for cash are limited. Like jewelry stores sell diamonds and gold jewelry for exorbitant prices, an individual will never be able to sell for anything close to that. The reason is that jewelry is sold based on the retail value to the buyer, not as an investment. When you buy gold as an investment, your choices of selling it are akin to reselling that old diamond ring online. Basically, your only good option is to sell it wholesale, just as if you were selling a pile of old gold jewelry. You cannot get in and out of gold easily or quickly, and you will not be paid the full market price when you do plan to sell. The gold industry is managed by multiple levels of wholesale distributors, and your access will be at the bottom. That means whoever buys from you will have to sell it one level up, and eventually some entity at the top gets it and will resell it to another investor for full market price. Your anticipated profit was taken off in multiple haircuts. If you decide to make gold part of your retirement savings in place of cash, there are two issues to consider. The first is the difficulty you will have spending gold. You can't just take a bag of gold to the grocery store and use it the same as cash. You'll have to periodically liquidate some amount of gold and convert it to cash, which you can then use to buy food or pay for other necessities. Unfortunately, your proceeds from selling gold like this will become subject to the fluctuating market value as well as the discounted price offered to consumers. Because of this, you'll leave a lot on the table if you plan to use gold as a retirement income method. Some of the companies selling gold as an investment may retain the gold and guarantee to buy it back at higher prices than other places. This would help you to liquidate quantities of gold during your retirement, but you will not have the gold in your possession, which could be a problem in certain circumstances. There are two positives in having gold or other precious metals as part of your retirement savings, as long as you don't plan to liquidate them as a regular source of income. Immediately after the crash of the dollar, all your cash accounts and investments will be worthless. That value is gone forever. Whatever you were able to put aside in gold will not go away. Gold will remain a precious metal, even if there's no current market for it. Eventually, when an economic system begins to stabilize, the value of gold will creep back up. It could be a generation or so, but eventually, whoever is holding these kinds of items at the right time will become the wealthy of the emerging new society. The only way owning gold is beneficial for you is for you to have physical possession of all your gold. Don't let some company hold on to it, because if you're not able to retrieve it from them in a crash, it'll be gone just like all of your cash accounts. Just be prepared to secure it so you can protect it while it's in your possession. To maximize this approach while putting this gold plan into action, don't divert any money needed for securing and stocking up the homestead to buy gold. As a side investment, acquiring precious metals should be the last thing for which you set money aside. An exception, however, if you have a plan where a portion of your savings for retirement income could be held in gold, then you can hedge against that possible loss by doing so. There are a lot of details to work out, but if you do, you might be glad you did. Just remember, you can't eat gold, you can't wear gold, you can't build with gold, so its tradable value won't return until there's a stable economy once again. We already talked about the inherent risk of digital currency in any economy. Essentially, all your savings and investment accounts are already digital. But in our current economic system, you can get cash for your savings or from the sale of your investments if you're inclined to do so. It's complicated. The government regulations regarding cash will have the financial institutions fill out a lot of paperwork, and you'll have to assure them you're not laundering money. Other than that, you can cash out of all your current bank and investment accounts. For the blockchain cryptocurrency, there is no physical existence. No matter how much you have, you cannot presently turn it into cash. In the event of any level of social or economic disruption, that makes electronic money the most risky of all. It's even more theoretical than fiat currency. It only exists in electrical currents stored in a system of servers, possibly scattered around the world. Anything that prevents you access to your digits will be detrimental to the value of that asset. A strategic loss in electricity in certain places could wipe out entire blockchains of digital currency. Loss of the internet could isolate the owners of the digits from their ability to access them until or unless those connections were restored. Since cryptocurrency can only be traded online, if you can't connect your digits with the vendor where you plan to spend them, you can't use it. Worldwide power outages could wipe all traces of cryptocurrency from existence. And as we recently saw in the news, theoretical money is much easier to spoof than counterfeiting cash. The important position to take if you want to incorporate this approach is not overfund saving money for retirement income at the expense of retiring your debts and mortgage and building up your property infrastructure. If you consider a paid-for home and all the provisions you might need as part of your retirement savings without sacrificing planning for income needs as well, you can build a retirement plan that will take care of you no matter what the future holds. If you ignore retirement savings completely and you invest all your working income into preparations and life continues as normal, you'll struggle for the necessary cash. If you have both retirement savings and all your supplies covered by the time you retire, then if things go south, you will lose some or all of your cash. But at that point, you'll be able to survive with the provisions you set aside in hard assets. In review, The fundamentals of retirement planning, which are easily adapted for the person wanting to prepare for a worst-case scenario, are as follows. Number 1, reduce debt with the goal of becoming completely debt-free before retirement. Number 2, invest in a homestead property suitable for creating self-sufficiency. Number 3, stock your homestead with all the equipment, supplies, and infrastructure you need for a working farm. Number 4, develop a reliable off-the-grid energy source for your homestead. Number 5, protect your critical electrical systems from an EMP blast. And number 6, have written documents in place for your wishes on the transference of your assets at death. There's no scenario where having little to no debt isn't a good thing. The less of your income you have to devote to retiring debt, the better at any stage of your life or in any economic situation. We all hope things will just continue to be as they are now. So it's important to keep fulfilling plans for a normal retirement. Being debt-free works well for you in any variation of that path. Take a look at where you are now, where you would like to be. Plot out a course to help you get there. Find any help you need in developing and implementing your plan. And most of all, get started like your life depends on it, because it just might. Thanks for taking time with me today. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe below, and we welcome your comments. Until next time, I'm Richard Dunnagan.